subject I'm going to talk about now will just about guarantee that I'm a hillbilly. And that is roadkill. What roadkill is edible and what's not, and how do you tell? Basically, as you know, there's a lot of things you get hit on the road. In our case, it's rabbits. And there's different ways of telling if it's good or not. One of the ways is, if you've driven down that same road, say it's a day it's reasonably cold, you know, you sort of, you need a sweater or a jumper, it's sort of cold, and you drive down there on, you know, in the afternoon sometime, and the road's clear, and then you come back and you find deer, rabbit, whatever else, there, on the side of that road. It wasn't there before, and it's reasonably cool weather, that's probably alright to eat. There's some things like pigs, you know, the ones in Texas they got going feral. There's too many things in them, you know, tapeworms and diseases in them. Goats are chronically known to be disease-free, they'll be good. Deer, as you know, heaps of people shoot them and eat them anyway. Rabbits are usually right. Over here we've got introduced diseases, but what we do is we check the liver, and if the liver doesn't have any spots or anything like that on it, it's usually fine. It's usually pretty healthy. Almost all these diseases, except the odd, very rare case of myxomatosis, all the other diseases, these things have built resistance to. Even the one released in the late 90s, they're completely resistant to it in certain areas, particularly Warrnambool, where the phone exchange went out. I think there's some area in the state that I'm in anyway that they're completely resistant to the Calesi virus, which is the one they released in the late 90s or something like that. Now, if you are coming back late at night, there's another trick my uncle used to use when he found dead kangaroos, and that is, if you'd slice into it, because you don't always grab the whole thing if it's a bigger animal, you don't bother with grabbing the whole thing. You may, but you know, a lot of people here generally don't. If you slice into the meat, I'm not talking about it being warm on the outside, but if you slice into the meat and then the meat inside is warm, then it hasn't been dead very long. The other one I use, you know, and that indicates it's safe, because if it's still warm, it's only been killed like 10-15 minutes ago. And you notice dead things go hard. What that is the fat in your body is actually, as you may have realised if you've got a bit of guts, it's soft and it's liquid, and when you slaughter something very recently, it's still soft, and you know, you touch it and it's like oil on your hands, and you know, it hasn't hardened. When things cool off after they die, that's when they go stiff, and that's not something to worry about, especially if you're in cool weather. So that's one way, is to check the temperature of the meat inside the animal. The other way that I use is, often these things end up with a bit of blood out of the nose, is a commonplace, sometimes the mouth, and you go and check if that blood is still wet or not. On the rabbit that you saw getting sliced up, that was actually roadkill. That had a lot of saliva hanging out, and the saliva was still wet on the actual road surface. It was stiff, but I suspect it had been hit early in the morning because it was quite cool that morning, and it had stiffened with the cool weather, and of course the saliva, it hadn't had enough sun on the road to actually evaporate the saliva, and the saliva that was spurted beside its mouth was still damp. And so I assumed that yes, that was also alright. Anything that's a fresh kill or sort of reasonably fresh kill in cold weather, or, you know, fresh kill in medium weather, is fine. Hot weather, God blimey, they'll be rotten literally in about 2 hours. They'll be stinking, and they might be, you know, a bit beyond it. You know, 4 hours I wouldn't be touching it. But yeah, that'll give you a way. Now, there's another way, if you don't want everyone nosing into your business, to get the stuff out and get out real quick, and that's what I was saying about my uncle. Now, he used to get kangaroos that have been hit by semis, and at a place I work, actually at the nursery, one of the blokes there was driving at about 5 AM in the morning, freezing cold, hit a roo. Damn, got out, brake lines are all fine, nothing's broken off, okay. Hop back in the truck, 15 minutes later he hits another one. Now, when you hit it with a great big Kenworth, you just whop, and that's it, you know, and then you just get out and drag it off the road so it's not in everyone else's way, and then you drive on your way. But to get 2 in 15 minutes, ugh. But my uncle used to go down this particular road that semis were known to go down, and that's how he picked these things up. But he wouldn't grab a whole great big roo and throw it in the boot. What he does is, and you can do the same thing with deer, if you don't want to be farting around trying to field dress this thing for blasted half an hour, if you just want to get the meat and get going before some other nosy bugger turns up, or people start gawking as they're driving past or whatever, what you do is you cut off the back legs. Now, you don't just sort of hack any point of the leg. What you do is you slice in the side, and you'll see the leg sort of like, it's sort of like your leg goes like that, and then it arches like that. And what you do is you slip it more or less up against the rib cage. You slip it up against the rib cage, sort of a side, and sort of go towards the inside. You don't just go hacking it across it because you're going to hit the bone. But what you're aiming for is the ball and socket. Now, the ball and socket has a little tiny, about 1/4 inch length of tendon in the middle of the ball that connects between the ball and the socket to hold it in place. On sheep and quite a number of other animals, they have that. So what you do is you just chop off that back leg, and as you're slicing, you're aiming for the ball and socket joint, because you won't have to cut through any bone, and the worst you'll have to do is, if you know, you hit a sheep, cut a bit of tendon, and I think many other animals have that same small amount of tendon connecting the ball and socket. And you chop, basically, he used to just chop both back legs, and if he had enough time, the tail, and you'd go for one of the joins in the bones in the tail, and go for where they join, and basically slice around all the gristle and tendon there, and that'd be it. And you'd never have to break any bones, wreck your knife blade or whatever, and he'd just chuck them straight in the trunk of the car, in the back of the car, and he'd be off, he'd be gone. And then when you get back later on, you can skin it, slice it up, mince it, do it, whatever else you want. With me, you know, I do rabbits as you've seen in the slaughter video, and either put them straight in the freezer or get them straight on the cooking. And then after I've cooked them, let them cool, and then put them in the fridge. But that's a basic idea. If there's any other large legs, if you've got deer with large front legs, same thing, go for the ball and socket. Just go for the bits that have got meat if A, you don't really desperately need the meat, B, you just want to get some stuff and get going because you sort of want to get home at a decent time, or you might have nosy people hanging around, or you don't feel like, you know, doing a whole field dress on the side of the road as the cop pulls up and says, "What the bloody hell are you doing, you dickhead?" and find some little shenanigan to charge you with, which is probably the most likely case that would happen over here if you were caught doing stuff like that, by a cop car driving past. They'd find some stupid bloody misdemeanor charge, you know, some little fart charge to put on you just to annoy you. But anyway, that's a good way of getting meat on the cheap with roadkill, and I know there's a lot of blooming hillbilly associations, so I'll probably label myself now. But don't be scared, it's a lot of meat and it is cheap, and that's your method to get it and get out quick. With the rabbits, I just throw the things in a the largest plastic bags. Pick them up and plonk them straight in the boot, bang, and straight on the road again.